Hi, I am Pratim Ranjan Bose. You are watching my podcast show presented by Iravati Research and Communication Center or IRCC. Today's topic is the Himalayan contest. We will discuss India's improving defense military logistics in the mountainous northern border. I have with me retired Brigadier Niladri Shankar Mukherjee. He is Secretary and Executive Director of Kolkata-based think tank SENASK, which has its known interests in security. Welcome, Brigadier.
Thank you, sir.
I don't think that viewers would need much introduction to the topic. China was the first country to make huge investments in creating infrastructure that helps fast and all-weather movement of troops in the Tibetan Plateau on India's northern border. India, though a late riser, had been making fast and quick progress with huge investment in road, rail, and other logistics infrastructure along the northern border over the last 10 years of Narendra Modi rule. The Indian side, being hilly, we have a more uphill task in infra creation. India's alertness has particularly increased after the Galwan Valley clash when Chinese troops made an intrusion in the COVID year of 2020. With this, sir, you have worked both in the Kashmir sector as well as in the northeastern sector, bordering China. How do you rate the progress on Indian side in the last 10 years? Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Just give me 1 minute to go a little bit into the background and remind your viewers that on the floor of the parliament at that point of time, the defense minister had said, the then defense minister had said, that the infrastructure development in the borders along the line of actual control was not developed as a strategic situation arising out of the fact that there was a thinking among a section of the defense forces as well as the political dispensation of the time that if the infrastructure development takes place, it will be easier for the Chinese to come across, attack us, and seize our territory. And this was something which carried on for years and years. Some of the development that did take place was absolutely on a need-some basis. Now we come to the present infrastructure that has taken place when Modi came, the present dispensation took office, as also post-Galwan. You must understand that Galwan was the trigger wherein the infrastructure development took a frenzied pace. Two things will make this clear. The first thing is that there was a definitive allocation of funds was increased twofold, threefold. In fact, from the usual 1 billion USD at that point of time, which was being given to the Border Roads Development Program, it suddenly increased to about $5.8 billion. 118 projects are nearing completion now, all along the LAC from Ladakh to Arunachal Pradesh.
So I believe that there are many infrastructure which are basically civil in nature, but will come to serious use of the forces. I mean, I remember many tunnels and etc. The pace of building tunnels has picked up right from 2015 or so in Kashmir sector particularly.
You are absolutely right. And
also the Northeast has witnessed many projects were lingering for a long time, like the Bogeyville Bridge. Okay, it was pending for 20 years. So we have seen very quick implementation of projects which were pending for too many years. So that way, if we add the projects which were implemented at a fast pace, I mean the past projects and the new projects, so that way, I think there has been a major shift in the whole situation.
And you must also appreciate, you are very right, Mr. Bose, you must also appreciate one thing, that all civilian projects in this area from 8,000 feet onwards to 15 to 16,000 feet above sea level, along the entire border with China, has not only a civilian usage for the civilians which are using these infrastructure development that are taking place, but have military uses also. In fact, it has dual use. And therefore, one of the major things that the Indian government has done is opened up tourism right up to the border areas, so that this entire area is not only the communication setup is maintained, it is used and well oiled, so that whenever there is a requirement of allowing our own armed forces to make use of it at the pace that is required, it will be so done. Also, the Vibrant Village program that the Indian government has initiated in response to the Chinese building up and making the villages close to the LAC habitats for their troops as well as civilians, which they are wanting to place at that point of time. India has also taken rapid steps in this direction. Class 9 roads are coming up to the villages very close to the LAC. As also, mobile towers are coming up. 3 very important large-scale radars have been deployed. Surveillance towers have been deployed. And this entire scheme of things, apart from the border area development which had started, has now been given a new name as the CIBMS, that is the Comprehensive Integrated Border Management System. This is monitored right from the PMO's office, and the border infrastructure and management at the level of the Defense Ministry. And this is going on at a rapid pace. I was about to tell you that 118 projects are nearing completion. You can imagine the pace at which the entire activity is taking place round the clock. Now, let's just see what has been done. The air aspects, where we had only about 3 of these airfields in the Ladakh area, which was initially the Phokche, there are old airfields and the Thois airfields. These have been upgraded already. 500 crores have been put into a new airfield, Neoma, which is coming up at the height of 13,000 feet. It is going to be one of the major and highest airfields in the world, which will be absolutely ready to take in all our fighter squadrons. Apart from that, the advanced landing grounds at Mechuka in the Arunachal Pradesh area, as well as the Tooting area, these advanced landing grounds have been upgraded. The Barrackpur and the Bagdogra airports have been upgraded with another allocation of nearly 500 crores. So the air aspects has been taken care of at a frenzied pace.
I think that apart, all the highways nearing the Himalaya, in the Himalayan foothills, have airstrip provision within the highway.
Absolutely, you are absolutely right. And the upgradation of a single lane to double lane, all culverts into class 70 specifications, we can take in heavy vehicles and tanks, and the bridges all along, wherever there was bottlenecks, these have been catered for. A large number of tunnels are coming up. I will not go into the complete details, but give you just one example of what multi-role a tunnel plays. A tunnel close to the area of the LAC is not only reducing the time, is also ensuring connectivity to the LAC during periods where snow and other terrain effects come into play and access to the forward areas was difficult. But it is also a storage for arms and ammunition, for weapon systems, for war wastage rate inventories, as also these have escape bays where large number of military munitions and etc. can be stored, apart from the it working as for large-scale weapon systems that can be put in, which cannot be taken out by the missiles and artillery of the enemy. Apart from that, I must also mention that the challenging geographical terrain of this area and the ecological environmental concerns have delayed certain amount of projects, but are being taken care of now at a rapid pace.
Yeah, because I'm once again repeating for the viewers, the Chinese side is actually plain land. It's a plateau. But the Indian side is high mountain side. So there is a serious difference between these two. So when we create every kilometer of road or whatever we are creating is actually far more difficult than on the Chinese side.
You're very right.
Having said that, sir, just for understanding, we had been, I will this briefly. After that, I'll come to the Northeast sector. So, for example, you have mentioned about civil military use. For example, the Char Dham project, I can clearly understand. that both Kedarnath and Badrinath had rough patches where movement of vehicles were barred. But now under the
Absolutely.
and during the winters they were inaccessible. So
Absolutely.
now that will be mitigated. And just to understand, when you have this kind of, you said that tunnels have multiple usages. But that apart, when you have this kind of improved logistics, how does it help in terms of your preparedness? I mean, is it because you can deal with lesser soldiers, or just keep moving the soldiers? How does it happen?
Your viewers must understand one thing, Mr. Bose. We have a distinct disadvantage amongst other things, that when our troops go and deploy in these areas, they have to acclimatize. And this acclimatization process is very, very necessary. Otherwise, the troops will not be in a physical position to really stay there and fight. They have to acclimatize, and the process takes 7 to 14 days. Now, therefore, at various stages of high altitude, where these troops are taken there and deployed, and then they go through certain absolutely laid down process of acclimatization, both medical and physical, then they are staged upwards into their proper deployment areas. Certain troops are already there in the deployment areas, and post-Galwan, as you know, there is a mirror deployment which has taken place of more than 50,000 soldiers on both sides. And these are troops which are already acclimatized. But if tomorrow we have to move a strike corps, or we have to move additional troops into the area where the battle is taking place, imagine there is a time lag of nearly 7 to 14 days where they have to acclimatize and then deploy.
If I understand you correctly, assuming there is a battle in the high mountains, under normal circumstances, simply sending a force will not help, because they have to take 50-40 days.
Absolutely.
So here in this case, you have staged deployment of forces. You have your bases staged in a staged manner. So in case of emergency, you are moving them upwards.
Absolutely. And therefore, this infrastructure development, if I might just mention here for your viewers, is not only rail connectivity, air and tunnels. It is huge camping areas which are out of the eyesight of the Chinese, and which can take in large bodies of troops who can be then exercised into being acclimatized and then moved up.
So for layman's understanding, yes, it is just not enough to pick up your soldiers and airdrop them. One fine
absolutely,
they cannot fight,
especially in these terrains.
In that cold, some of the areas witness world's second, third coldest zones, 30 minus 30.
Absolutely.
So you cannot remain there unless you are acclimatized. And they are very high mountains of 15,000 feet and etc. So this is not doable under normal circumstances.
Very right.
Sir, let me quickly come to the northeast sector. Now, this has been one of the most neglected. Let us forget about military. I mean, in terms of civil infrastructure, it was awful till the other day. Now, suddenly we have seen a burst of activity today. And just the other day, there have been at least 4 airports already since 2017. There are 4 airports in Arunachal. There was none. And roads across the region has improved substantially. There are multiple bridges, and many more bridges are under construction, bridges and tunnels. Just the other day, we completed building Shela Tunnel at 13,000 feet. I understand it will ensure all-weather movement of troops. Now, how much more you would like to see in this sector?
For your viewers, I must explain one thing very categorically. The Northeast is to the Chinese the most important sector. Reasons? There are 4.
For reference, China claims
Arunachal
Pradesh as South China.
Yes. They call it South Tibet. They feel, firstly, they have claims over the complete Arunachal Pradesh, as you know. And they have hardened their stance insofar as Arunachal Pradesh is their territory. It is coming to a stage where it is not negotiable. Also, I must, for your viewers, tell you that last time when the foreign minister of China had, during a meeting with our national security advisor at one of the forums, had told Mr. Doval that, look, we would like to also discuss Arunachal Pradesh Doval bluntly told him that, look, Foreign Minister, if you want to put in Arunachal Pradesh on the negotiating table, all negotiations will stop. Post that, there will be no negotiations. So the hardening of stance by the Indian side has already been taken place, that Arunachal is not a negotiating factor on the negotiating table at all. That is one, which was not so earlier, because we thought that nothing was happening and that peace and tranquility was prevailing in the borders.
We saw a major intrusion in that area in 1962.
Exactly. Thereafter,
We
also,
saw a couple of clashes, particularly one was in that Doklam, and that was on Bhutan side, and other one.
these are not the only things. These are not these are
I
the
think we
only
also
incursions
saw
which are,
one major clash in Sikkim.
yes, but these are not the only things which are happening insofar as Arunachal Pradesh is concerned. The stapled passport visas. Remember, every time a politician from our side or a prime minister or a governor or anybody who went to Arunachal,
I think
a huge
only a
amount
couple
of
of months
protests.
ago, I think only a couple of months ago, some athletes were traveling to China and
Absolutely. They refused to give them visas. They would give them stapled visas and considered them as not to be part of India. So, and why is this so important? Because China still feels that the world feels that the Tibetans have been given a raw deal by the Chinese. They have yet not, to an extent, should I say, finished off the spirit of the Tibetans in Tibet. And therefore, if they can, by some chance, occupy South Tibet or have influence over that area, then they can control the entire Tibetan Buddhism spirit of nominating the next Dalai Lama also and taking care of the entire psyche of the Tibetans in that area and get them on their side. So Tawang is a very, very important piece of terrain for them. And for us, we realize the importance that Tawang has. And also that we faced debacles in 62 because of various reasons of infrastructure advantages that the Chinese have and the fragility of the terrain on our side. And therefore, the frenzied activity, as you mentioned, Mr. Bose, is taking place now in Arunachal Pradesh. And all along in that entire area, the Air Force bases are being strengthened, because I can assure you that in the next skirmish, if it spirals up into a proper, battle at the LAC to even protected period of 15 to 20 days or 3 weeks or a month, the Air Force will come into picture. It is not going to be a one-sided army action on the ground itself. So therefore, this activity and the camps, like I told you, an entire strike corps is something in the region of nearly 50,000 troops which will go up. And they need huge areas where they have to camp, acclimatize, and subsequently move into the battle areas. So this is why there has been an allocation of nearly $5 billion to the border program of infrastructure towards the Northeast.
Okay. That takes me to the last question, sir. How did you started, you took a reference of Galwan Valley. Though clash skirmishes, small intrusions, this has been pretty common in, not pretty common, but there had been many references of Chinese forces and this and that, and and there is an expansionist force somehow. So, but how crucial was Galwan Valley for all of us, and what are the lessons that we have drawn from these? How did it augur well? How did it augur for either side? What has been, should I describe the security situation in this region as post-Galwan and pre-Galwan?
Absolutely, Mr. Bose. I will tell you why. Galwan was the trigger. Galwan again told the entire nation that the Chinese cannot be trusted. Galwan focused the entire, it was an emotional uprising in the entire country post the 62 debacle of another mini humiliation that we felt when 20 of our soldiers were killed. And there was a dispute as to how many we've killed and how many they suffered casualties. It was, to a large extent, an assimilation of an emotional.
They admitted four.
But an emotional assimilation in our country to say that we came out second best. And therefore, it acted as a trigger. then the armed forces, as well as the present dispensation and the country as a whole, thought it should not happen again. Let me tell you and your viewers, Mr. Bose, that apart from the public nitpicking that the political parties do of, telling each other that this is not being done, that is not being done, in this case, after Galwan, the Chinese suddenly realized all political parties in India are on one platform. They are absolutely with the present government on this one aspect, that the Chinese will not be allowed to have their way post-Galwan, that they have never now hindered any deployment that is taking place, the infrastructure development that is taking place, the fast-tracked bureaucratic clearances that are being given. Even the judiciary has stepped in and done its bit. So therefore, there has been consensus. That is one. Allocation budgets have never been questioned. Hereafter, they are giving it with absolutely whatever the requirement is, the government is meeting that. The armed forces themselves understand the seriousness of the situation. And not only that, they are realizing that the nation is now behind them. They are doing their utmost best, and we can't let them down. The fourth thing is that Galwan has now given us at least one thing, that we have to be ever alert to the salami slicing tactics of the Chinese. They tried it post-Galwan in 3 or 4 areas which you are aware of, but the hardening stance of the Indian Armed Forces as well as the Foreign Ministry in the kind of, should I say, response that was given on all political forums across the globe made the Chinese understand that Galwan was a mistake. It not only oiled the entire system of response of India, we have now deployed, we have freed another 10,000 troops, mind you, which were on administrative duties, and converted it into another front-ranking corps, which will now act as the second strike corps against Chinese. And the Chinese have vehemently protested. They are nervous. And let me also remind you that Air Force in this entire area is the key, and it has an edge. So therefore, to my extent, Galwan acted as a trigger to not only unite us, oil our entire supply chains, infrastructure development, deployment, and strategic thinking. In spite of the 21 rounds of talks that have taken place, we strongly realize that the Chinese are playing for time, that they will not move away from what they are doing at the moment in Depsang and other places, and that we have got to be ready. And therefore, I think we are along the right track.
I just a quick response. One, India is, China's economy is slowing down and India's economy is growing. Do you think that this is the time when we have to reinforce our security the most? And are the nightmares of 1962 behind us?
Mr. Bose, it is difficult to answer this question because of 2 reasons. We are much behind China insofar as infrastructure development and armed forces, the way they have over the last 30 years developed. It is going to take us some time to catch up. Our economy also, there is a vast difference. And because of necessity of the supply chains, even now, the trade deficit is immense, and the trade with China is ballooning. It has gone to $135 billion. We have, however, taken certain steps. We are not allowing them investment into areas where it has security sensitiveness in our country. That is one. The second thing is, wherever we are finding an alternative supply chain, we are tapping it. The third aspect is that the Chinese have now realized that we are now allocating sufficient funds to our defense forces, in spite of the fact that they thought that forcing India to spend huge amount of money on the defense forces will weaken them. It is not so. We are still progressing at 8.5% GDP. And therefore, the Chinese realize that apart from the infrastructure development, apart from the allocation of funds for border allocation of infrastructure, the Galwan thing has not been a correct, should I say. It has been a strategic mistake by them.
It helped us.
It has been a strategy.
To be more
It helped us. And it has brought all the nation's political parties and differences together. Behind the scenes, I must assure my viewers, every political party is now on one platform. It is not the public, bickering that we do is there for public consumption and for elections. But this major concentration of ideas and strategic thinking insofar as China is concerned has evolved into now what we call the 3 Cs. And Jaishankar is propagating that. What is these 3 Cs? Cooperate with China on world fora on matters which help our ecology, our environment, and our interests. Compete with them wherever the Chinese are also moving in. We should be also going and trading there, take off tenders from them, put our labor there, and compete with them so that they also feel the heat. And third C is confront them. If they try any slicing, if they try any skirmishes on the border, if they try any activity which belittles us, we will confront them with all the might that is possible. So these 3 Cs have suddenly sharpened their focus and become national policy.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Not at all.